Well, they also talked about foreign policy a bit last night, and she always reminds me of George Bush when she talks, but Bernie's biggest weakness, I think, is by far this foreign policy issue. Josh, is this going to be his downfall? And we have seen poll numbers where overwhelmingly even Bernie supporters favor Hillary on defense, ISIS, foreign policy, and yesterday he was fixated on North Korea as one of these huge threats to the U.S. Isn't this going to be his downfall more than how left he is?
I think so. At least with the type of voters that he needs to pull away from Hillary in places like South Carolina and Nevada to really make a run of this race. The thing that I was shocked by was, first of all, that they asked a question at all about Afghanistan. That was astounding. But neither of the candidates seemed prepared to answer it. They both gave pretty poor answers. But what I thought was very telling about it was the way that they bullshitted their way through it. Bernie bumbled and rambled and, talked about, sort of the general philosophy that he has, which is responsible withdrawal and, to make sure that the Taliban or whoever isn't going to, take over Kabul. And Hillary Clinton, all she started doing was just listing facts that she knew about Afghanistan at the moment, which were like things like troop levels and where the problem areas are. And that, I think, alone is why she wins the foreign policy debate, because even when she doesn't have an answer ready, she sounds competent. And people who love Bernie love him for his passion. But in a general election, your passion is great, but are we going to die from North Korea or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, so he has to really get better at that, or as soon as if Clinton can pivot away from defending her progressivism into areas of experience, I think that will be the message that works for her and not Bernie.
That's a good point. I think when you mention types of voters, younger voters don't tend to worry about things like defense and foreign policy, but the older voters that he has to win away from her certainly do. Peter, how big a problem is that going to be for Bernie when, he's just bumbling all over his words when he brings up the Middle East?
It's less of a problem in the long run than it was last night. I agree completely with Josh. This was the weakest point for Bernie last night. The thing is this. You can learn about foreign policy. Bernie can get some smart people to educate him. He can get some good talking points put together. He can go to Afghanistan. He can learn as much as he needs to learn to answer these questions better. Hillary cannot unlearn her money from Wall Street. She can't unlearn whatever may happen with the emails. And more importantly, if Bernie would ever get his shit together about talking about her experience, her record, past the Iraq vote, I think he's got some very strong points there, particularly vis-a-vis Libya. Let's not forget, he talked a lot about Hillary's Iraq vote in 2002, and it's worth bringing up. But I think, it's never been mentioned that in 2011, Hillary was one of the strongest voices in the Obama administration about bombing Lebanon or Libya and getting rid of Gaddafi. That has turned into an absolute clusterfuck to the point where on the front page of the New York Times today, they're talking about Obama reconsidering going back into Libya militarily. That would be a really good point to focus on in terms of her experience. After that, I think he also can poke at her experience on Iran, where nothing really happened under her time, and she actually was very strident about more sanctions. How it took John Kerry to move that process forward, how it was only under John Kerry that relations with Cuba opened up. The problems we're looking at in North Korea, she had 4 years to do something about, same as China. Her famous reset relationship with Russia and Putin was an absolute crash and burn. So I think, Bernie can educate himself, and more importantly, he really needs to get his act together, and as soon as she says the word experience, he needs to bring up some of these examples of her experience.